Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Fara's Carrier Guide. Today we're going to be talking about basic tactics in your aircraft carrier. Topics going to cover today, we're going to cover things like general maneuvers of your ship, what's the map, what can we expect from the map we're working on, where are the enemy ships, what classes, what tiers they are, situational awareness using the minimap, if you get detected, playing ships stuff, working in your plane locations, the danger of AA, spotting the flight paths of your planes. We'll talk a little bit about ship positioning and terrain, about the risks to your carrier if you're under threat, such as can you be shot, can you be bombed, that type of thing. Managing the map and the sort of the zoom functions at different kind of look down modes, closing for bombing, looking at the grander picture, reading the map to decide what to do at certain points of the game. We'll also talk a little bit about communication, expressing your intentions to others, what others expect from you, that type of stuff. And then also, I guess more importantly, what do you do first? So with that being said, let's get into the game. So here we are with my Hear You. For the purposes of this episode, I think we'd like to talk about a little bit in detail with the WoW's tactics map, about explaining general intentions of the topics, and then we'll go into a random battle. We'll see if I can't do sort of a visual demonstration, sort of practical lesson, as it were, of elements that we talk about. So if I bring up the WoW Tactics map, first thing I want to talk about today is what map are you playing on? It's quite important because each map plays differently. If as an example here, this is the map known as Neighbors. Spawn points for one team are on the top left and the other one's in the bottom right. It's quite a small claustrophobic map in terms of the distance between ships and the range of their guns that can hit you. The carriers typically start right on the edge line of the landmass, and when your decisions there are don't move or move around and hide. Does your team go north? Well, maybe you want to go along the edge and skirt with them. Is the team going south? Maybe you want to come down to this K line and just, well, it's not the K line again, but anyway, you see what I'm saying, and skirt along down the bottom here. So you want to know is that, are people going to cluster into C? Other elements of the map are, well, in this particular instance, in E6, we see that this island offers good cover for sort of ships anti-air or whatnot that can hide behind these islands and have AA bubbles, which, if show, have relatively quite good range. 7.2 kilometers is typically a type of an AA ship. So we can understand there are no fly zones, that ships are immune to being shot at by our team, but they can be quite a nuisance for us and our planes getting shot down. So and this is just the map Neighbors. There are various different types of maps. For example, we can show you Land of Fire. Knowing the different kind of scenarios, where do you sail, what do you do, how do you manipulate your ship? This isn't something I can specifically tell you what to do. It comes from experience. You play the map, you know generally how your team is going to behave, and in this instance we're using randoms as our focus here. And you want to work along the basis of, well, what am I going to do here? Am I going to go straight down the middle? Am I aware of where AA traps might be, where ships may go? Do I know that destroyers go to the center for capture points in the domination battle mode? Should I scout them first? So knowing the map, knowing the kind of general island dispositions, the general meta of the game, depending on what server group you're on, like who goes for what point, whether the team deathballs to one direction or whether they spread out, is important. So given a map, the tactics for what you do in the game can slightly change. So knowing the maps can help. The other thing about general ship maneuvers is when you enter the battle, you want to press the tab button. Now we will do this when we go into the actual class lesson itself, because let's turn that off for a second. So when we say by the tab button brings up the team lineups when you're in game. Or alternatively, you can just look at the ship lineups when the game's about to start. Now we'll do that later in this video when we actually go into a random battle. The reason why I'm saying this is it's good to know what the opposition is on your team, but also what friendly ships you can rely upon. So, and actually, the reason I'm trying to get at here is that how many cruisers are on the enemy team? How many cruisers reliably have defensive fire on the enemy team? German ships can be somewhat reliable to take hydro currently, so they might not have a defensive fire. Whereas other ships that are AA oriented, for example, perhaps the Cleveland for the American one at tier 6, might have a defensive fire. They probably do. So you want to know how many cruisers there are in the enemy team, and then estimate, well, it's probably going to equally distribute them unless they're in division, then it will clump them together. And you just want to have a general feeling for, well, how dangerous is the enemy AA on the enemy ships. And also for your given tier, and in this instance we're looking at my Hiryu, I know that I'll probably in the tier 7, 8-ish bracket of ships, I know that are there any Gneisenau's, Scharnhorsts, Bismarcks, or just battleships that have typically good anti-air that I need to be aware of, so I can formulate a plan in my head. Right, well, I know these guys are dangerous and I know what's on the enemy team. I can, work around that, and I can decide which target do I want to go first. Do I want to find this easy destroyer because are there no cruisers, or is there way too much anti-air in the team setup, so maybe I go for a carrier snipe? These things can be decided upon in the first 60 seconds of the game countdown clock when you just look at this enemy team's composition. And that also kind of works for you as well, because you want to look at your team's composition. Who is vulnerable? Who's weak? Is there a ship here that I know that doesn't have good AA and is vulnerable, but he's good at just killing off enemy ships? Maybe I should protect him. Also, with regards to using your fighters, which we'll come to later in episode 5 with plane control, but using friendly AA when you're fighting, well, what are your good ships? What are your fallback ships to fall back upon? Do you have good AA cruisers? If your bombers are grouping up and looking for a target, but then all of a sudden they get surprised, you see enemy fighters chasing them, well, it's good to know who you can fall back upon. And in that respect, if you know you have a Cleveland on your team, fly back to them. Even if your fighters can't save them, maybe the friendly AA ship will, and then the enemy fighters will back off. And you can use your friendly AA with your fighters to, duel and engage. And also, you don't want to engage the enemy fighters over typically his battle line, because even a light AA ship, or even just a ship that has some AA, is going to contribute if you tag his fighters over it. It does have a kind of a snowballing effect. The other element, which we'll talk about in the random battle, is situational awareness. Now, I don't necessarily mean the default skill that gives you an apostrophe point, an exclamation point, sorry, that says you're spotted. I mean that in the sense that you need to keep an open eye to the larger presence of the map. You can't tunnel vision, as it were. So when I say situational awareness, I mean I want you to use the minimap, which interestingly the tactics map looks quite similar. So we want to use the minimap, if this was an example of the minimap. Where are the ships? What are the composition? How is the game evolving? Where are planes? Where are my planes? You want to keep a general view every once in a while. Have a quick peek at the minimap, see how the situation evolves. And you don't want to get caught out. You want to see like a destroyer that was last seen here, and you as the aircraft carrier are here, because you decide to go down there. Now you haven't seen this destroyer in a while, and you're focusing all over in the center, and then you're thinking, hang on a second, what's stopping this destroyer from sneaking up and coming around and attacking me? Because once you're actually ship spotted, depending on your detection range, when he comes around the corner, it might be, oh, this is really bad. Now I need to turn around and run. Maybe your planes are off somewhere else, you don't have bombers ready, you can't defend yourself. If there's no other friendly ships, you're kind of screwed. So when we say situational awareness, we just mean if there are 2 or 3 destroyers on the enemy team and you haven't seen one for a while, start thinking, where is he? Do I need to find him? Do I need to protect myself? That's what I mean by situational awareness, which ties into 422 and the point system, where I say plane or ship detected. When you are plane or ship detected, where are the planes? Or if you're ship detected, what could be spotting you? Where are your friendly ships that would spot him? If you have, for example, a battleship over here maybe, and a cruiser over there, and you have a friendly destroyer down here, and you are ship detected, the odds are, he is probably going to between these islands over on this east side. And then you want to redirect any plane that you have in that general direction. You can also communicate to your team, and we'll talk about it in a few seconds as well. And then once you found him, it's a case of making everyone aware by clicking on the minimap, or F3 clicking on the destroyer, or saying, hey, type there's a destroyer on me, help please. But usually you're left to your own devices. In that respect, if you're lucky and you're sailing in the other direction, you need to run fast. Or if you see it, you need to get out of there. You do not want to make it an easy target for the destroyer, in this particular instance, to torp you or to shoot you. You want to kind of reduce your silhouette, and you want to get your bombers back and to deal with the destroyer as quick as you can. But that's another topic for another day. Right now, we're just talking about situational awareness, being plane or ship detected. The next element we'll want to have just a quick chat about is your plane locations and the danger of AA, spotting, and flight paths. So in this particular instance, let's pick a different map. Let's go maybe with north. Okay. So the AA field on north, AA ships typically have a range of, 7.2 kilometers is a safe range to estimate. That's usually, if someone takes advanced fire training and uses the AA range module on their ship, you can find that ranges go up to 7.2 kilometers. Now, that becomes dangerous because if we and our carrier, in this particular instance, are north, and the enemy team is south, a cruiser or a battleship that has 7.2 kilometers can come up to this island and sort of stall and look. So, for general purposes, our planes cannot, or should not, I should say, enter this bubble. And you're going to have to use the minimap and use your own judgment at what 7.2 kilometers is. You can listen to your planes when they say, hey, I'm under fire, or the language of other nations, and they kind of flicker on the minimap, letting you know that something's happening to them. And then, excuse me. So they'll let you know they're taking a hit or something. Another slightly more advanced technique is, rather than telling your plane to fly somewhere and then loitering causes them to circle. And as they circle, they'll enter and exit the AA aura of the enemy AA ship. What you want to do is you want to waypoint the plane back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, so that you control exactly the flight range so it never enters the AA bubble. Typically, of course, we don't scout with fighters, we scout with our dive bombers, and in this particular instance, I'm assuming we're playing a Hiryu, which is what we're going to be doing. So, we've spoken about the dangers of AA, knowing what the terrain is, knowing where they might be. If you do take some losses, dive bombers, it's not so much. We can back off. We don't need to, we know where they are. We know roughly where this sort of no-fly zone is, so it's maybe safer in this particular instance to talk about the flight path. If we can't go through the island, is it safer for us to go around and through this gap here? Well, let's go have a look, and you can go this way and you can fly around. So you can set some flight paths, waypointing around what you suspect to be heavy anti-air, or just any general anti-air. In this particular also map environment, depending whether it's domination or standard battle, we are also very interested to spot for our team not just enemy ships. Cruisers, battleships are usually quite detectable, but we're also interested in spotting destroyers, perhaps, and we're also very interested in spotting torpedoes, because our friendly, or I should say our hostile destroyers, will be quite happy to fire torps or torpedoes, shipborne torpedoes, into our friendly team line. So even though our destroyer doesn't really want to fly, dive bomber doesn't want to fly into the AA envelope, we can waypoint him between the gaps of islands where we know that, torpedoes have to be funneled. And if we waypoint this plane to fly back and forth like this, any torpedo that might be fired by the destroyer, we will detect early. And once a torpedo is detected, it remains detected forever. That means if we have a friendly battleship, who's perhaps over here or over here, provided our dive bombers are ahead of the battleship and flying back and forth, you'll see the torpedoes early, and it gives our team the ability to evade or detect or make the necessary maneuvers. You've given them the information. It's up to that player to do what he wants with it. You can communicate the fact, hey, there are torps coming towards you, but ultimately it's up to them to try and do something. Flight pathing, again, as always said, we can fly around. We're looking for elements. We're trying to stay out of AA. That comes down to what A ships there are, where you think they might go on the map, how you fly around it so you don't take unnecessary losses. think that pretty much covers at the moment, and we can try and show this as we go into our game in a few. Another slight element we can talk about is your ship positioning and the terrain. So right now, in this particular element, our aircraft carrier spawns top center. Now, at the moment, we can, hypothetically speaking, be shot at from range. If we go slightly further forward, if we get detected by an enemy plane that we can't necessarily do anything about, a hostile dive bomber isn't looking to attack us, he's just looking to spot us, what can we do from the beginning? Because right now we can't, if the dive bomber has dropped its payload, it's quite fast and our fighter's never going to catch it. It's just going to be a running duel, and then the fighter's out of position and his fighters could maybe dominate your bombers and fighters. So in that respect, what can we do if we're spotted? Well, you could, if you have good anti-air on your ship, move towards the dive bomber and try and wound it, but ultimately we don't like being ship detected, so we want to know what can we do with the terrain. Well, in this particular map, we do have two favorable islands that we can make use of, we can hide behind, or depending how the battle evolves, let's say our team is moving more down sort of Charlie and Delta capture areas, we can sail our ship along the north border and then down kind of the flank with our team, because and you can use the islands as cover. Alternatively, if your team's maybe going over to the A and the Bravo side, you can come down the western side and all. There is no one set answer. You have to look at the map and think, my ship could be out of line of sight for enemy battleships. I can't be long range sniped. The last thing you want to do is be broadside at like 20 kilometers, and then all of a sudden some Nagato just goes bam. Oh look, I got 14, 15, 16 or 20 and sometimes 40k damage off him because you're really easy to Citadel. So you don't really want to be broadside, and you want to use the islands as cover. Now you can be ballsy and you can be stealth and you can get closer, but rest assured, if something sees you, you'll be fired at by a lot of things. So you want to think, can I be shot at? Can I use the terrain to help me? Now another thing that is useful in using the terrain is, in this particular instance, let's say I'm having a look at my aircraft carrier on this island. I'm moving the aircraft carrier closer to the island, moving in this general direction down the way. Okay, so my nose is pointing this way. If I know that the enemy carrier wants to attack me, as an example, and this is an element of can I be bombed, if I'm close enough to this island, these torpedo bombers cannot drop their payload in such a way that the torpedoes activate in time to hit me. I'm too close to landmass. Because I'm too close to the landmass, and with my AA setup on the Hear You as an example, my AA bubble is 6 kilometers, like that. Which means the enemy torpedo bombers, if they want to attack me, they'll have to come into the AA field and then go around and attack that way, or go around and attack this way. The entire time they are inside my AA bubble, and that's assuming I'm stationary, because I know my side flank is protected from their approach. They would have to come around from an alternate direction, which means they'd have to fly around. Now, I see the planes, and my fighters might be going to intercept them, or maybe my fighters are fighting his fighters, but I can see what he's trying to do, and I can take appropriate action. Maybe I turn into them, maybe I try running away from them. In this particular instance, if the planes are coming from behind, and my nose is pointing down the way, well, I would run away from the torpedo bombers, and this is something I'll talk about in advanced tactics later, how to avoid being attacked by a carrier. But what I'm trying to explain here is that use the terrain of the map to your advantage. Force enemy planes if you know he's being aggressive and wants to attack you, so that he has to come around and spend more time flying around before coming out from that direction. So the island for us is preventing us from being seen by ships, and is also preventing easy bombing attacks, other than dive bombers, of course, by the enemy. Torpedo bombers are the main threat. What next? Managing the map, different zoom modes. Well, we'll talk about this in the roundabout because we can't really show this here on the tactics map. But ultimately, what I'm talking about is when we are in game, there are sort of 3 camera zoom modes, as it were. There is your standard camera, which is similar to what we have in port, or you play your normal ships, your destroyers, cruisers, battleships, where you're sailing with a camera over your ship, and then you're firing with your zoomed in camera at things. Or in-game, when you're the carrier, you would select the carrier. In this instance, I have my carrier hotkey as G, and then you'd press the Z button, and that would zoom in. And we'll show this again on the random battle. And then you've got your normal map mode, which is the sort of standard mid-height look down, where it's good to control planes, you know, manual bomb, that type of thing. And then we have our strategic map mode, when you press the M button, that takes you all the way out, and you can see the grand scheme. So when I say manage the map, what I mean is, what works best for you? Do you stay out? Do you look at the grand picture? Do you microplanes in the wider map? Do you zoom only in for close in for bombing and microing? Because the side effect of the downside, at least for me, is when I'm in the mid map range looking down, I'm sort of tunnel visioned. I'm only looking at the small element of the map. I don't see what's outside the borders of my screen, so I don't necessarily know where enemy planes are coming from or whatnot. So I'm very more reliant on the mini map. But we'll do that again when we go into the random battle. Reading the map and deciding where to go, well, that ties into sort of situational awareness, realizing how the battle's developing. Am I going to get cut off? Am I going to be hunted down by enemy ships? Do I need to move? So we'll look into that in the random battle as well. Communication. So communication is, it can be a very important topic. It is in ranked battles. It is extremely important in competitive battles. You don't necessarily need to type anything. The F keys are quite useful, and I'll tell you what, we'll go into a random battle here in just a second, and we'll get this going. But what I mean by F keys is that, you know, do you need assistance, or affirmative, thank you, or just F3, focus as target. That's basic communication. That's, for the most part, all you really need. But if you need to do more, then you can express your intentions to your friendly team. So at the beginning, you can say, hey, I'm going to fighter scout over this capture point at the beginning. I'll give you support. Let's say to your destroyers who are going over there. Minor things you have to be aware. It's like sometimes if your planes are on one side of the map and you're providing scouting or support, or maybe you're protecting your bombers because you're killing off some important target, and then you have a battleship on the other side of the map that's on your team and he dies, it's like, and then you're, oh my god, terrible CVs, you're horrible, why didn't you protect me? You have to be realistic expectations from non-CV players. He doesn't know the problems that you're going through. He just probably doesn't play carrier. He doesn't realize that you can't be everywhere at once. So for the most part, if you want, you can say, sorry mate, I was over on this side doing this, I couldn't help you, my bad. You know, keep it simple, keep it civil. That's usually what I do, but sometimes there's no appeasing people, but I wouldn't let it get under your skin. And then lastly, what to do first? Well, do you scout first? Do you strike first? Do you escort first? That's, again, map dependent and also team dependent. So anyway, let's go into a random battle now. And we will employ some of the tactics that we've been talking about. So first things first, oh dear lord. We're going to look at the enemy opposition, and we realize that we have been, in a Hear You, thrown into a tier 9 battle. This is going to be tricky. The enemy Hear You we can deal with. That's no big deal. Okay. The Iowa, good AA. The Friedrichshaus, compared to our planes, has good AA. The Ismo has good AA. The Gneisenau's, the tier 7 ships have good AA. Neptune has ferociously good AA. I don't know about the St. Louis. The Hipper could just be Hydro, but the destroyers are good targets. The Akizuki is actually bad because he's got good AA. The Mahan might have a defensive fire, but it's unlikely in random battles. On our side, we've got a Baltimore that's good. He's probably going to have good AA. But the Colorados aren't so great, so we might have to babysit them. So we've had a look. Alright, it's a bit loud. So we've had a look. If you're wondering about this, these are the team panels I use from the Aslan mod pack. So now this is the mid-tier map that I'm looking at, that I can use the roller mouse to move back and forth. This is the strategic map showing me the whole element. And if I select the carrier, then press the Z button, this is what I mean by the close-in camera. Right, so our planes are ready. I'm going to go fighter first. In this particular instance, because the enemy AA is so heavy, I feel like I'm going to fighters first so I can protect my torpedo my destroyers, and then I'll do dive bombers first because I am not going to be bombing a lot of things in this game. And you see that we're going to be going, I'll be doing some advanced things here, which I'm not really going to be talking about in any great detail because I'll be covering this in more later episodes, but ultimately I'm telling my dive bombers to drop their payload so they fly faster so he can get scouting done quicker. So for here, I want protection on the destroyers, scouting done with the torpedo dive bombers, and then torpedo bombers up ready to look for a target. And a little bit of communication, telling my team what I'm going to do for this Akatsuki over B. Whether it reads or not is kind of irrelevant. I'm just basically telling the team what my intentions are. I think for the audio of the squalling pilots a little bit. So I'm watching the minimap. I'm seeing... Yep, he read it. He's quite happy that I'm giving him air cover. So I can see in the minimap last known locations that the teams are generally going down BC. There's an Akizuki. I don't like that. I'm going to use the dive bomber to scout instead. I don't want to use scouting with my fighters. The Akizuki has good anti-air. So I'm reading the map and saying, oh look, there's a Mahan as well. I think I'm going to keep him lit up. Right, I'm just going to sacrifice the fire then keep him lit. Maybe I can get the dive bomber to spot 2. Yeah, maybe we can force the Akizuki out. So I'm going to tell my team to F3. He's the target. He's holding back the B cap. I want the team to go after him. At the same time, I want to keep the man spotted. So scouting here is very, very important. And I'm using the communication with the F keys to make that happen. I'm managing the map by not just bottlenecking, you know, in just one view mode and not tunnel visioning. I am zooming in and out to make sure what's going on. I see a Neptune that's attacking my dive bombers, and when I pull that away as best I can while keeping the hand lid, great, he dies. And he dies because I'm spotting with a dive bomber. The fact that it dies is now irrelevant because we got the kill. This Akizuki, I also realize, probably doesn't have a defensive fire ship nearby. Yes, he's got... Oh no, we lost our destroyer. Okay, well he's in smoke. He can't see the planes because there are no friendly planes nearby. I'm going to wait for that smoke to expire and maybe get a torpedo strike off him with my torpedo bombers because he doesn't have a defensive fire ship nearby, even though he's good anti-air. I don't honestly think I could attack the Neptune with my torpedo bombers as the help we've got. Oh, hello. Am I being... Is he trying to carrier snipe me? This is me reading the map. I saw that on the mini-map, and now I'm going to go down and redirect my planes. I'm going to turn my ship away and run away from the bombers. This is more of an advanced tactic about surviving carrier snipes. Yeah, so he's possibly going for me, but you'll probably go for friendly ships or something, so we'll see what we can do about that. This dive bomber isn't only just looking for this Akizuki, he is also looking for incoming torps that might come from the Akizuki as well. I know he's in hostile AA, but rather than having him loitering too close to the knives now, I see how I start waypointing him up as well. Now I could try and blind smoke torp because he's not moving. Oh, there he is. Boom. Right, let's give it a go. We see him. I think that's radar from our friendly Baltimore. We're going to make this opportunity happen, and we're going to try and torpedo attack him. Now, I will talk... Oh, no. Come on. Where'd you go? Here we go. Right, smoke's dissipating. We're going to be talking about cross-drops and other elements later. Actually, I'm doing this wrong. Let's see. He's going quite slowly, so... But he is hurting my planes quite a lot. We didn't kill him. We did wound him. We can F3 him, but we lost our Baltimore. I actually lost focus of my fighters down the bottom because I was trying to go after the Akizuki. I'm still gonna... I think something's up with my positioning of my mouse. But anyway, point is, we don't need to have the dive bomber directly over the Akizuki. We can slightly pull it back to the detection range. Reading the map, I realized that this is still relatively okay with what ships are lost, but the enemy is getting cap control. I'm looking at my planes and I realize, you know what, I want to recycle my second group first, and I'll keep the first group out because I'm going to be spotting for any kind of long-range torps. And that's what I'm going to do. I don't really want to spot the Akizuki right now because I'll lose my last plane, so I'm going to just spot for torps with the waypointing. With the map as it is, I know there's a hipper in the Yugumo in the north, so I actually don't want to go too far with the Yugumo north. Yeah, in fact, you know what, I'm just going to go south now because I don't want to sail into these ships and be spotted. And I think I might actually send this fighter back to look over B and have the dive bomber looking between the A approaches to make sure there's nothing coming at me. So that's me looking at the grander map. I'm going to look back in. Communication-wise, there's not really much I can talk about our team. We're all sort of clustered down in the southern kind of side of this map. It's not looking great, I'll tell you that much. My influence on this game is probably minimal. And games like this can happen when you're lower tier, but at least you can try and help by providing us what sighting that you possibly can. I think we can attack the Hipper with our Hiryu. We could also attack the Yugumo, and we could theoretically go for the Akizuki and finish him off again. So it's not like we're hopeless, but in terms of battleships, we're going to be in a hard time here. Well, he should die, which is useful because he's pushing a little bit too hard and there's a lot of teams focusing on him. Our rune is going up for the Hipper. I want our rune to survive with a lot of health, so I'm gonna... I also know the Akizuki is really weak. He's only his smoke. Oh, hello. Well, the rune's AA should be good enough to deal with the tier 7 fighter, so we're gonna go for... I'm gonna run away with the dive bombers back to myself, focus the planes. The runes... AA should be good enough to deal with that. I'll get the fires up, I'll move the torpedo bombers around. There's a lot of things going on here at once, guys. Oh, apologies about that. Alright, we're not detected anymore, but he does know what we're doing. We've spotted the Yugumo for our rune. We know fighters are chasing me. I also know that I can't stop them with my own... I don't have a good run in either. Right, let's break up. I know this is a bad idea to bomb. I'm not going to have a good run in here. I'm going to try and peel these guys off. Alright, so I lost 2 planes. But I'm fighting now over friendly AA ship, although he is possibly not going to live very long. I'm going to try and help him with the Hipper. Or the Yugumo. Unfortunately his scout planes got me, but if I can just get 1 hit in, this will be worth it. Nope, didn't get it off. That was quite frustrating. We won the fighter duel, but unfortunately it's kind of irrelevant because our rune has pretty much been beat up. The enemy carrier got what he wanted, which was to intercept our torpedo bombers. And now the enemy has shifted from his hold on C and he's moving off to B. C bombers. The thing is, I know that he could probably get a hit off on the Friedrich Ghost if he's got good AA. But in this instance, we're not doing very well, put it that way. Our team has been pretty heavily outplayed and we don't have any points as well, so we're probably going to lose this game. But we tried what we could. You know, we knew what map we were on, we knew what the enemy ship classes were, we used the minimap so we didn't drift too far into kind of hostile terrain or territory. You know, because the Yugumo and the Hipper, I'm not sure if he damage conned or not, so this might be a bit wasteful with the dive bomber, but I'm going to hit him anyway, see if I can do a bit more damage. He fires. Is he burning? Is he going to burn for long? Is his damage caught up? I don't believe it is. We might have actually got a kill there. That gives us a few extra points, that's quite helpful. Right, now I'm going to send my fire, because I'm looking at the map and I realise our Oknavoy was spotted by dive bombers. I'm going to make sure he's not spotted anymore if he survives, which he doesn't. That was a mistake on my part. A lot of things to keep concentration on, but ultimately, as far as basic tactics go, look at the you want to keep looking at the minimap, seeing how the thing's developing. I now know that the enemy team is coming in for the kill. They're focusing around our team. It's pretty over. What can I now do in this scenario? I'm going to bring up tab. Who's left? Well, I could kill the Yugumo, I suppose. How much health has the Knives now got? Well, he's low. Maybe I can help the team killing him off. Iowa couldn't hope to do anything about it. St. Louis probably not. No. Let's go towards this Nice now because he's trying to rush in and give our team a breathing room. Because he's got our other battleships on a broadside. It means he's going to get damage. So we're going to basically go in as quick as we can. We're a little bit desperate here, so we're not going to group up the planes individually. We just need to get in there and attack as quick as we can. There we go. It might have been a bit wasteful to use 2 torpedoes, but we wanted to make sure it happened. So we helped our battleships from being shot at broadside just by reading the map, reading the health pool of the ship that he had, realizing that the Yugumo isn't a threat at this very moment. So, we now see the health of our own battleships and we're pretty terribly screwed. So I'm not going to go particularly fast. I know what my detection range is. I'm just going to hide and hopefully not die. Now the problem here is that I don't want his plane spotting me either. And the enemy carrier's not paying attention, which is allowing me to strafe him. Anyway, to recap, oh, and we're ship detected. Well, that's terrible because I'm broadside now to the enemy Nice. Let's pick up speed and turn. Ah, yes, well, we see why the Yugumo has actually pushed up pretty heavily. And this is why you don't want a broadside, because we get hit for really heavily for a health pool. So let's see if we can't do something about the Yugumo. We're also on fire. First wave's taken off. I want the second wave to take off, which is why I used the damage gun. Yes, we'll probably take following fires. We're probably dead, but hey, nothing much we can do about it now. We're turning nose on, so we're not exposing broadside anymore. And look, we're also possibly avoiding... These are not cross drops, these are not elegant drops in the slightest. This is us being desperate, trying to get some hits in on this Yugumo to make it different for him. Yeah, it's not particularly good. Oh, we want to focus the planes as well. Hostile AA. Oh, sorry, use our AA on the... Oh, we are so screwed. Ah, but we got the Yugumo! Hooray! So screw you, Yugumo! Wow, that was quite a game, guys. I didn't expect that to happen. I was hoping to get like an equal tier. Top of the team, well, fair enough. There you go. So this is an example where even at bottom tier, in a tier 9 game on a somewhat fragile ship of the hero using tier 6 torpedo bombers, it is possible to have a meaningful impact even just with some basic tactics. So let's have a quick recap. We'll go over the tactics map. That was Okinawa, I believe, the map. Okinawa, okay. So let's bring up the tactics map. We'll clear this off. Here's Okinawa. So here's the map that we just played on, and we plop ourselves here. Now we know that the enemy has a lot of ships. You know, he has a lot of hostile ships, and they are generally going in that direction from the initial scout. We know by pressing tab what his ship composition is. So we know the map we're on. We know that it's quite open ocean. We know that if there's going to be AA ships, they're typically going to hide between the islands, or maybe in like small destroyers in the kind of the center. We saw the enemy ship classes and tiers, realizing that there's a lot of heavy AA just simply by the tier gap, that we're going to have a difficult time. So in that respect, I valued launching my fighters and my dive bombers as scouts first, rather than going straight off for an attack as quickly as possible. We weren't ship or plane detected until much later. When we weren't plane detected, we sort of vectored to go deal with it, and when we were ship detected, realized, it must be the Yugumo at the very end there. So that was realizing what to do when you are spotted. Our planes, we knew the dangers of AA, so for example, when the Akizuki came in the center and the Mahan was coming in, we saw there was a Neptune, so we tried to stay out of the Neptune's AA range, or as far away as possible, out of his closer range guns. We saw the Mahan that was pushing in to the lower cap, and we also had the Okusi in the center. So with our dive bombers, we were able to scout both, because one dive bomber wasn't close enough and I had to pull him back in, we temporarily used our fighter, but we thought it was worth it because the enemy carrier has a hard time over our ships as well, so it was worth using the fighter to scout the Akizuki, and it was felt that it was worthwhile to keep him lit up. We were unlucky that the enemy managed to get torps into our friendly destroyer. We had a pretty good thing going on in B until his torps got like our guy in the smoke. We got 2 torpedoes of our own on the enemy Akizuki. Now that was more of a, we're watching the map, we're seeing what's happening, we're reading it, and we're thinking, are there any ships that could cause a defensive fire? Is there anything that could cause a panic effect that could reduce the damage? No. The Akizuki, yes, he does have good AA, and he was killing my planes off very quickly, but we were on him as soon as his smoke ran out. He didn't have much time to click on our planes or to kind of focus them down. He might not have been an anti-air spec Akizuki. He may have been a high explosive spec Akizuki, so his AA might not be as high. So we were able to get some good hits in. Unfortunately, because we lost our destroyer on the central cap, there wasn't anyone there to finish him off immediately. However, the Mahan in the south, because we were providing scouting and and helping out and communicating with the F3 button and target this guy, he was focused on, he was coiled just before our dive bomber died. The destroyer in the center R1, he was quite happy that we communicated, we're going to help you. We probably made his day in the beginning until he took a random torp in the smoke. Maybe that's an alt account for FTD, we don't know. But regardless, the Akizuki lived a little bit longer than we'd liked. The map itself, in terms of the zoom modes, where we were zooming in, at least that's my playstyle, to get a good aim of the bombers to get a bombing run, or to micro the fighter planes. But for the most part, I like to zoom out on the wider map to see what's going on, who's going where, what's happening. Because we saw that, for example, our rune was going north, and we had 2 enemy ships here, which is why I was intending to go all the way up north. As soon as I realized we lost the fight in the south, it was an immediate turnaround. Situational awareness, like spotting the minimap, knowing what's happening, is another important thing, because we noticed in the south on the minimap reasonably early in the game, oh look, the enemy carrier has 2 fighters there. Why would he have 2 fighters in the south? Well, he's clearly protecting his bombers. His bombers are going to come around. So one of 2 things is going to happen. The planes will continue along the southern edge and then come at me from below, or the bombers which are coming in behind at a certain rate will turn into our ships. Now, if they turn into our ships, we actually have quite a number of ships together. That's quite a lot of overlapping anti-air. His planes are somewhat low tier. However, we still want to pull our fighters down immediately to deal with it as best we can, either his fighters or his bombers. At the same time, in terms of what you can do as a ship yourself, eventually you will be sort of plane or ship detected. You want to sail away from the bombers. The reason you want to stay away from the bombers is as the bombers come at you and want to torp you, they have to fly around your AA envelope, which in this instance on the here you is kilometers. And because they have to fly around your envelope, it means that rather than going all the way around and then coming at the front to get a good hit, he has to fly inside your AA envelope while you're running away and then torp him from the side. So it helps you live longer. So that's why we had started sailing north, because of the planes incoming. But ultimately, the carrier player decided to come in for our battleships in the bottom here. But it's about a case of focusing, what do you do first? In this particular element, I decided to focus on torpedo bombing the Akizuki while sending my planes down the south. And I'm just having we didn't have any issues of unrealistic expectations from the players. We tried to offer support when we could. We noticed, for example, in this particular game, there was an enemy battleship that had a perfect broadside view on our 2 friendly battleships near the end. Our 2 battleships couldn't turn to face him to not expose their sides, because they were themselves facing hostile battleships to their top. So because of this view, the Gneisenau had a really good view on our guys. We had torpedo bombers ready. The Yugamo and the Hipper or whatever in the north here, they weren't a threat at the time. They can't affect us. So in that respect, rather than going for easy targets in the north, the best thing we can do is going for this Gneisenau that we had in that game and attacking him and helping our team. So that's just us reading the map, reading the health pools, who's got defensive fire, who's got good A, what can we do, that type of respect. And then I think that pretty much covers everything in basic tactics. We did cover some slightly more advanced elements in the random battle, because there's no way of avoiding them. But hopefully this answers some general information based tactics. Now, of course, what I have done today is not, how should I say, the standing rule. It will change from one battle to another. Depending on the map, you're going to have to use your experience. You're going to have to read the map because games unfold differently. So you have to see, what's my team doing? Where can I go? What should I do? Where should I send my planes? Should I scout first? This comes with experience in gameplay. But hopefully this video here gives you some basic understanding of what you should be looking to pay attention to. Looking at the map, looking at the enemy classes, reading the minimap, watching your planes, where are they, not going into enemy AA, that type of stuff, knowing your zoom modes, what they're for, reading it, good communication with your team as well, and then depending on all those factors, what do you do? When do you launch first, do you strike, do you escort, that type of stuff. That ends now episode 4 for basic tactics of Fara's aircraft carrier guide. Thank you very much for watching. In our next episode, we're going to talk about plane control, and this will go into more detail with regards to launch orders, wave ready times, cancelling plane takeoff sequences, scouting, which planes to use, advantage of speed boosted bombers, that type of thing. Fighter micro, more in detailed use of what to use fires, when to it, that type of stuff, using your ammunition properly. Target selection, who you bomb and why you bomb them, and then how to actually bomb. I'll actually go into detail about the explanation of the bombing. But that will be next time. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again.